Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the next session. I hope you're having a great day. We're learning a lot of really excellent content today, and I can assure you in advance that you're going to love this panel, because right now we're going to speak with the people who are on the ground helping businesses and working with our community through all of the disasters that we've had in recent years. So I'd like to introduce to the panel, we have Wayne Lowe sitting next to me. In situ in the Nambucca Valley. So Wayne's with Nambucca Shire Council, and you've been with Nambucca for
25 years now.
25 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We also have online Lisa Davies, and Lisa's with Port Macquarie Hastings Council. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
We have Fiona Barton with Coffs Harbour City Council.
Hello.
Hi, Fiona. And then we have Daniel Christensen with Mid Coast Council. Are you there, Dennis?
Hey guys, how you going?
Oh, good to see you. Hello.
How are you, Dennis?
Good.
All right, so let's get into it. What this panel is all about is really looking at some mid-north coast centric case studies. And as we go along, we might actually have a look at how you make your work place-based as well, because there's certainly a lot of talk about place-based, but as we know, programs aren't always designed so they can be specific for a place. But because I know all of your work, I'm very well aware how good you are at crafting things to make sure that they work for your region, so you get a result for the region and the businesses that are in it. So Wayne, could we start with a question for you? Can you give me maybe a bit of insight about what the last couple of years have been like for you? Because we've had the bushfires started almost 2 years ago, floods, COVID, more floods.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I've been fairly well established within the Nambucca business community for some time now, as we said earlier on. And so it was just a matter of having all my networks and contact bases locally already well defined and developed, so I could communicate right across the community, whether it be tourism, agribusiness, manufacturing, chambers of commerce and retail. The 2 years was, when we get the first disaster that comes along, you think, oh, rightio, we can respond to that. And, the bushfires came in and everyone knows how bad they were. And then, all of your emergency systems lock in across the council. It's not just me that responds, my response is to get to the business people and find out how it affected them, and then relay that back to the government via Services New South Wales or all the emergency teams that from the New South Wales state government that move up and down the coastline, and then the Commonwealth government agencies as well. So people like myself and Lisa and Fiona and other economic development managers, we're fairly well connected right across the board to the government agencies. But as much as you can be fairly well prepared, then to have the March floods come in on top of that, which were astounding how, just Maxwell, for instance, 990 mils in 2 days, the devastation that it created over that, 3 or 4 day weekend was amazing, and large councils and small councils all have to respond and help people, and that's when you get all the other great people within your community that come out, like the service clubs, and I could go on. It's not just council that responds. It's when you see that really strong community spirit. And I think the bushfires demonstrated that the first time around, and then the floods the second time around, and then we had more flooding. It's just been this year, or the last 18 months has been, and not only that, it's the aftermath. How do you repair everything that is damaged from that? Basically you've got to apply for funding, and then the other thing that us in the economic development world have got to do is basically work out and help the state and federal governments on where they should throw their money next to create stimulus programs that are going to actually work on the ground. And I think that's where the people that are in my role across that's what I think we're good at. We know what our communities want, what our communities need, and how they've been affected. And then, you can imagine, anyone out there that's listening, you can imagine all of a sudden you've just got to come up with a program that can be fully scoped and funded, and then have an outcome, and that's a lot to ask of a small team of people. And I suppose we were prepared for the first round, because you're always looking about what your community needs. So you're ready for the next funding round that comes along. But when the government says, oh, hang on, we need 3 sets of stimulus programs. What are your programs? How shovel ready are you? And, can you deliver? And what's the cost base of that? And I think what we're finding now is like costs are running, and a lot of those programs that we're putting forward, even though they've been fairly well scoped out and focused and budgeted for, inflation is having an effect on that. And, we're not being able to achieve what we first thought we could because things are more expensive and it's harder to bring it to fruition. So, that's probably the most recent dilemma, is that the funding that's been provided for the programs that we want to deliver is falling short of the mark. And, we've got to work out how we're going to, get those projects over the line, because you can't run and start a project that you can't finish. One, it's irresponsible, and the other one is it probably won't turn out as good and it'll have problems in the future. So, I look to my colleagues up and down the coast. I see Fiona to the north and Lisa to the south, and they're doing exactly the same thing. Like when we first met today, I said hi because it's been about 18 months since we've actually sat down and said, how are you? How are you coping in amongst your job and your council? And council makeups are all different. As I said, some are bigger, some are small, and people have large roles and not so large roles. So anyway, hopefully that's covered.
That does cover it, yeah, particularly some of those constraints that you have. And I'd really like us to talk about implementation fatigue at some point in the future of this interview. Lisa, over to you first. So can you explain a little bit about what your role's been like in the last couple of years, and particularly how it's interacted with businesses and how it may have changed?
Yeah, absolutely, Kerry. And I think, Wayne's touched on a range of the points there. We really have been, trying to deliver, business as usual to a certain extent, but on top of that has been all of the responsiveness to the various disasters. And I'd probably add drought to that list that Wayne covered as well, because, there were some pretty significant implications for local businesses from the drought as well, and water restrictions and all of those sorts of things. So, it's been a really, I guess, a time of great learning for us, but it's been a time where it's really reinforced the importance of us actually, having those great connections with local business and industry and understanding what's going on for them, being able to paint the picture and tell those stories and feed that to all of the people that need to know it. It's exactly, Wayne touched on our connections with other levels of government. And, I think if there's one thing that we reflect on that's really pleasing is that we've seen, numerous examples where we can actually collectively across the region paint the picture to whether it's the state government or the federal government and say, this is what is really needed to help, these industries that have been most affected by the bushfires or by the floods or what have you. You could probably debate all day whether some of that help has been timely, but, certainly we've seen help given, and then we've seen adjustments to make it more applicable, to ensure that it does actually reach all of the businesses that might need that. But, certainly that has been a big part of, of what we've done. We've also looked at, how do we look broadly as a council, not only at economic recovery, but also obviously, the social impacts, the cultural impacts, all of those things across our community, and drawing on our local stakeholder network to develop solutions. So COVID in particular was one example where we formed a COVID recovery working group, working with local stakeholders, and then that was divided into a number of subgroups with specific focus areas. And, and from that we saw a multi-pronged approach to how we actually responded, and are still responding to try and work through that recovery process. And some of that is about us as a key organisation and a major spender within our community with a $70-odd million works program. How do we ensure that our investment in new infrastructure or maintenance and repairs is actually engaging more local businesses and having that impact locally? How are we actually working to support the industries that are hardest hit, and still continue to develop capacity, some of that industry development, what's actually going to help them bounce back more quickly. And particularly, I think the big thing for us has been, and we actually touched on it, a couple of us having a chat before this discussion, that we can't do it all. We're one player in the game. Partnerships and collaboration are absolutely key and continue to be key. And whether that's with, local business and industry, our local business networks and representative groups, other levels of government, community groups, for us, the Charles Sturt University has also been critical in some of those initiatives, other education providers, TAFE and the RTOs. So it's, it's been a particularly challenging time, but I think, the reflection is there. We learnt particular things from bushfires, for example, that we then took those lessons and applied that in how we responded to the floods and working with, local businesses as well. So,
Thanks,
great
Lisa.
challenges, but great learnings.
Yeah, absolutely. And Fiona, I know that you did some things outside of what might be a normal council role during these times. Could you talk about that and maybe other initiatives you've brought forward during this time?
Yep, sure. So obviously, we do as a group of people communicate with each other and so share lots of different ideas. Some of the things that we've been able to do, and it is, as Lisa suggested, utilising those stakeholder engagements that we consider really important and are vital to our delivery. We've been able to, one of the first things, I guess, when COVID first hit back in March last year, seems like much longer than that, but we put out a survey to our business stakeholder group and got quite a large number of responses, more so than what we have ever had before to any survey we've put out. And from that, we were able to design, I guess, some activities for straight away, but also long-term as well. So some of those were around webinars that we put together. We did some work with mental health for small business owners. While there's a lot of that around now, in the initial probably 6 to 8 months, lots of mental health capacity was focused around individuals, and lots of the information for business owners was purely just around that, how do you support financially your business? And we had recognised that lots of our small businesses in particular had to put off staff that for no reason other than that their business wasn't able to be open. Also, the dream that they'd had and that they'd worked on for a long period of time was no longer viable at that point in time. So we were able to work with an organisation to develop some mental health wellbeing activities. We've done a number of festivals, a number of celebrations of people that have actually been innovative in what they've done. We've utilised our connections with both our local chambers of commerce and other business networks within the town. In October last year, we ran a really successful small business festival. So we did that over 4 days in 3 different locations with 14 different speakers and 17 different topics. It sounds like a mouthful when I say it now. It was at the time. And what we were able to do, it was done as a hybrid event because at that time we had planned it as face-to-face, and then it kind of took a momentous turn when some restrictions came together. So we were able to hand deliver to everyone that had registered a workbook and a little snack pack sort of thing of local products, used a local printer, a local deliverer, and so really supported the local industry more than just our people that came along to the event, used all local speakers. And it was probably we had over 400 attendees across those 16 sessions, which is quite a magnificent event. We've also done some other Festival of New Thinking. So we've done some work around helping people strategise for future proofing their businesses, look at innovative mindsets, look at sustainability initiatives, and just recently we've completed our last Festival of New Thinking, which is around resilience. So had a whole day workshop where we had, again, some guest speakers who were able to look at continuity planning for business, mental health wellbeing for business, and also some what do we do now? How do we increase our sales, and how do we market ourselves from that? So I guess probably my background is in small business. So coming from that kind of viewpoint, we look very much at what business owners need and require and how we can provide against that. Very much back up what Lisa said. We are learning all the time. We can't do everything, but we look at how we can facilitate opportunity for the business owners within our community so that they can stand on their own 2 feet. Very favourite saying of mine is you can fish for someone and feed them for a day, but teach them how to fish and they'll be fed for a lifetime. And so part of our role is how do we encourage our business owners to fish for themselves rather than being dependent on us, but certainly as much as we can facilitate that growth within them. We say job well done for that. So, yeah.
Thanks, Fiona. And Dennis, your boots are on the ground in the street, like everybody speaking on the platform today, really. What are you hearing from business owners about their challenges at the moment?
Look, it's been a tough time, certainly a roller coaster, and ours probably started way back during the drought as well. So we had some towns where we were shipping water in, and but the resilience has been amazing. You know, everyone just keeps turning up and they keep fighting the fight. We went through the floods and the fires, and the last lockdown in our area was particularly tough on people. I think that was nearly the wit's end point for everyone. But I'm pleased to say that driving into town today, there is a line of traffic as far as the eye can see coming. So I think there's good times ahead. Certainly nice things to look forward to, and I think it's pretty positive out there at the moment.
Dennis, as you know, we're saying that the event this year is in Wingham or online via Wingham. Can you tell us a little bit about how that community of Wingham's going through this period of time?
Yeah, Wingham, look, they're a strong rural country community. They really copped it hard through the floods, more so than the bushfires. But in that community, within a couple of days after, it was amazing to see some of the businesses that they just got on with it. You know, they'd been knocked down, but they just got on with it. They helped one another. One of our communities in, one of our news agents in Tuncurry got a heap of gift card awards and then just took it out and handed it out to houses that have been flooded just off their own back. Yeah, the working togetherness and the resilience of people during that, and Wingham in particular, was fantastic.
Thanks, Dennis. So Wayne, can you tell us a little bit more about businesses in the Nambucca Valley where you're working, and what opportunities do you see lying for those businesses in coming years? I know it's a broad question.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're across it.
If only if we all had a crystal ball to know where the economy is going to go next. You know, there's with all the people being not travelling overseas to date, and the economy, our economies are quite strong. And as Dennis just said, you know, like they're about the next wave is about to come. We've had time to sort of prepare for that. So I think it's going to be a strong business environment, you know, for the next 6 months. And we can only hope that the Australian economy, you know, keeps firing on, and we don't see any because I can see a period of really strong rebuild. You know, even the supply. I go back to the supply chains because I've had to fix a lot of damage. And we're still waiting, like Melbourne's been closed down, like our major ports of Melbourne and Brisbane, that, you know, that make us tick as well as Sydney. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the supply chains flowing out of that, they've been locked down for a long time. You know, I'm waiting for cooling fans and, you know, a whole range of things to get us going. So as that starts to trickle in, and hopefully, you know, the supply chain of materials will keep coming, it's triggered this whole new exit, you know, like Bernard talked about the greatest mass of Australia's population retiring and getting out of the cities, going back in 2010. Well, then the global financial crisis then stopped that from happening,
Yeah.
you know, and then, you know, people's had a chance to recover from that global financial in their own asset and wealth. And now with COVID, it's made them think about that sea change and tree change. And, you know, we're hearing it on the news every night and across every economy, how, you know, the so I think there's good times ahead, you know, like with the population growth, the new builds in everyone's community. It's just, you know, hopefully that we can, you know, all the, you know, just to get materials out of Brisbane at the moment, with Brisbane still closed, you know, I'm waiting on materials to come down and they're going to hand things over the border, you know, like once we get past those few constraints that are left now, I see, you know, the mid-north coast of New South Wales from, you know, the Tarrees right the way through are going to be strong communities. And I think business opportunities will be there. And I think there'll be job opportunities. And I think that's what we're all facing at the moment. We're going into that hospitality period. And, you know, like the COVID double vaccination thing, you know, like we've got a lot of youth that haven't got there yet. And they're mainly our hospitality people, you know, and obviously, you know, our fruit picking and, you know, for the berries and whatever, we rely on the people that come in from overseas, and we've got to have that. Otherwise, there's going to be food rotting on vines. So, but if fortune rolls our way and these things start to come into play, well, I think we'll come out pretty strong. It's just it's just a matter of whether we're going to get the breaks or not that we need, you know. Yeah. So I see a strong future. Most of the people that I'm talking to have been through a hell of a time in manufacturing and retail over the last 18 months. Stop, start, go. Tourism to be included there. But I really think that, you know, if we get a break now, I think the economy is going to be strong. We'll get a nice injection over Christmas of the holiday makers, and, you know, and hopefully those businesses then can, you know, where the youth are going to come from to fill the jobs. We really, really need those youth coming out. And we obviously need those overseas fruit and vegetable people as well too. So anyway, I think there's good things ahead.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I agree. Lisa, how about you? What opportunities do you see?
Yeah, I've got so many things going through my mind, really, because I think if you were to have this conversation pre-COVID compared to now, you know, we would possibly give very different answers.
Yeah.
And, you know, certainly the regional growth that we're experiencing right across the mid-north coast, you know, we all anticipate that that's going to create and is creating and will continue to create some great opportunities for local businesses and locals, as well as people, you know, who move here from out of the region. The challenge for us, obviously, as councils is keeping up with that growth, as we well know, from an infrastructure and a services perspective. But I think, you know, the thing that is really exciting us and we're seeing is, you know, the fact that even through the challenging times, we're still seeing new businesses enter the market. And, you know, some of them are doing amazing things. They're out there, you know, latching on to what customers want now, not necessarily what they wanted 18 months ago. You know, and I think that's where there are those opportunities. Sure, we'll still see some, you know, some strength there, and, you know, tourism absolutely rebounding. We've all got our fingers crossed that is sustainable and that we can, you know, help support those businesses who already, you know, they're telling us that they're having trouble getting staff, you know, as we go into this busy holiday period. But absolutely, there's a lot of great things happening in other industries locally, and will continue to happen. And certainly, you know, some of the conversations we're hearing around the circular economy, and I know, you know, that's another conversation for Monday, which will be great. But I think we'll see some really great innovation and people leveraging the technology that's just gone ahead in leaps and bounds over this period. You know, so I think that's the challenge for us is, you know, how do we support that? How does bureaucracy, not just at a local government level, but at other government levels as well, actually facilitate these people making opportunities, or I guess bringing opportunities to fruition? And, you know, for us, that's got to be about, you know, thinking big picture and being willing to do things differently and engage with risk and, you know, collaborate and support. So.
Thanks, Lisa. And Fiona, how about you? What opportunities are you seeing in the COFS area?
I think it's interesting. Lisa mentioned in her previous answer around our business as usual activities, and I think certainly things that we were working on disaster resilience building and recovery kind of things are still opportunities for our area. Some of those have been added to because of what communities have been through in the last couple of years. So here in Coffs, we've got some really good research and programs going on around developing our agri-food economy to both look at how we support local health and local well-being, but also how that can supply opportunity into our economy, both for provision of dollars, but also for provision of jobs in that market space. Obviously, tourism is important for the whole of the Mid-North Coast, and we are right at the final stages of looking at how we develop that as a more sustainable kind of approach to visitation. So through looking at ecotourism opportunities, but also around dispersion of visitors, both amongst the whole LGA, but also times of the year as well. So building our events and things like that so that visitors come all through the year and also see all parts of our LGA. And I guess the last thing, again, just building a little bit on what Lisa said, is there's been so much innovation over the last 18 months to 2 years that people have almost been forced to do. And so just how we continue to build on those kind of thought processes and structures that have come into place so that we can make the most of that. Coffs was the first area to receive the NBN a number of years ago. As one of my staff was actually saying the other day that her father, who lives in Sydney, has only just been connected to the NBN, and we've had it here for a number of years. So just how we can continue to utilise some of those innovation abilities amongst the industries that exist here. And I guess the last thing is just around that building of creative industries with the great announcement that we've had earlier in the year around building a film studio here in Coffs, then obviously there's some really great potential and opportunity based around that. So I think as Wayne suggested, that life is actually looking, if we look ahead, maybe it is looking ahead with rose-coloured glasses on, but if we look ahead, there's really some great opportunities along the whole of the Mid-North Coast. Some of that needs to be supported by service and infrastructure, by staffing and skill development, and also, I guess, around that opportunity for where people are living. So I know that you've talked already within the conference around housing and housing affordability and availability. So, there's lots of that service and infrastructure that does need to keep up, but I think there's certainly a bright vision for people who live on the Mid-North Coast and people who are anticipating coming and living here.
Fiona, can you just talk about that announcement on the film studios?
Yep.
How do you see something quite large and iconic like that being able to actually impact across the whole region?
Yeah, sure. So I guess and it's a private investment, so we know possibly a little bit more than what the papers give out, but not too much more than that. But certainly Coffs has been recognised as a creative hotspot for a period of time. We already have quite a large contingent of people that either are in film or in creative industries here. So and likewise, so do lots of our counterparts around us. So looking at an opportunity like that obviously brings a new skill into the area that hasn't existed before. It brings not just basis of industry around film production, but it also looks at things like, there's going to be a 5-star hotel built that will provide for some of our superstars who might come and film here. So it's then looking at some of those service provisions, how we train young people or even older people into that service provision at a different level to what we may have experienced already in the area. Things around set production, around just even transport and logistics, like moving sets from one place to another. So there's quite a broad range of skills. So we're working with TAFE and some other local education institutions to look at what are the skills that will be needed broad-based, not just around film production, and then how do we actually provide for those. We may or may not have all the facilities to do that there. So how do we base that around our region so that it's not bringing like people who already got all their skills into the region, but how do we develop those opportunities for the people that live here already? the highway, as it is grown across the whole of the region, travelling in between the Mid-North Coast is getting a easier thing to do and take less time. So I think it now takes us an hour and a half to get down to Port, an hour to Kempsey. Yeah, so it's kind of like, it's not really like everything's just about COFs in that instance. There's actually a great opportunity for people within the region to be utilising some of those employment opportunities.
Thanks, Fiona. And Dennis, just to change tact a little bit, can you talk about an opportunity that Mid Coast Council identified and what your shop local vouchers are and how that works?
Yeah, so with restricted travel and everything that come about, and we saw an opportunity to learn more about who is in our own backyard. So we developed what we call a Shop Mid Coast program, and that's just about spending locally and learning who your neighbours are and what things you can get within your own region, and keep it there and circulate the money in your own economy when you haven't got visitors that can come in with freedom. So we developed what we call the Shop Mid Coast gift card, and our LGA has got quite a large number of different towns and CBD areas. So we had to make it inclusive of all of that. So it's just an EFTPOS card that can only be spent in our area. What we did was we got around 100 businesses on board before we signed up for the program. It was cheap to do. It came from some bushfire grants. It was $30K to set it up. We had 100 businesses located throughout our region in different communities, and went from there. And you just buy a card, and it can only be spent in the registered businesses. They have to have an EFTPOS facility, and then the money can't leave our LGA, so it just keeps it circulating within. It's just a nice little tool in the business to keep you focused on what's in your area, where can I spend it, and I can buy a card in Gloucester and spend it in Foster or Taree or Wingham, and travel within my own area and support all our local businesses. So it's just a nice way to pat each other on the back and keep some money in town.
Absolutely. And of course, your council's very generously donated numerous of those cards for us to give away during Ignite. So I challenge you all to continue vying to beat Lee Dixon on that leaderboard. He's currently in the lead again, and maybe looking at getting another prize today. Wayne, I'm going to ask you, I guess, a bit more of a bit of a question about businesses that demonstrates your knowledge of local humans that are running the businesses as well as the business itself. It's obviously been a challenging time for business owners, and Fiona spoke a little bit about the programs that Coffs City Council's been doing, and I think you have, Lisa, to some degree as well, with assisting mental health. People are just about to get, we could use the language, a lot of the businesses will be smashed with the tourist season when they come, which on one hand can be great because they're making money again, but on the other hand, maybe they're exhausted. What's your recommendation for any business owners that are listening about keeping themselves buoyant in this time when they might be feeling a bit exhausted?
Yeah, well,
Hi everybody, this is just our Zoom admin. It looks like our RDA studio has closed, or the connection has disconnected for a moment. If I could ask our panelists just to continue the discussion would be great, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Perhaps we might pick up on that question, or have we got them back? I can see you're back, Kerry.
Sorry, we're back. We've luckily we have a local business owner in our office with us who's an IT expert who just fixed it for us.
okay.
Yeah, so you were up to program services.
Yeah. Well, those government agencies, so I've just distributed the information to businesses through our networks, and seeing that they are using those state and federal government opportunities to draw on those resources, and and not only that, like that's part of an industry network and chambers of commerce and tourism agencies. We've been a small community. We're there to talk to each other. And so at the end of the day, I think that's how small communities have always done it. And hopefully in the Nambucca we grow to a point. I think one of the most important things for the future is that we've never really had the critical mass along the North Coast to make it, in my time, to make things, and for young entrepreneurs and business people over the years. But now we seem to be getting that critical mass. So people are going to achieve their goals faster and make them feel better. And I think that is one area that's going to help people through that stress period.
That's great.
Yeah. So.
And Fiona, I know you have done a lot of work in this area, in particular with mums in business that might be at home and isolated. What kind of findings have you had that will support people?
So basically, we've done a couple of different activities, which then we have resources that people can access at any time and anyone can. So like Wayne just mentioned, we certainly provide people the opportunity to look at some of those state and federal government assisted programs. So New Access for Small Business is a fantastic opportunity, because it's actually, you talk to someone who was a small business owner. And so that provides then that real basic knowledge of what the people are actually going through, not just from a mental health perspective, but also from their small business perspective as well. One of the things that we initially did right at the beginning of COVID was work with the rural medical health professionals. So they actually have done a lot of work with farmers and through drought, and how they reacted and how they were able to, I guess, be supported through that for their health and well-being. So we accessed a poster and kind of adjusted it a little bit. It was called How Are You Doing? And it kind of was just this opportunity that people could flick through a few columns to see, like, mark off where they felt, and if they had like more of one colour than another, it kind of said, here's something you can do. So if you're on the yellow end, it was kind of like, keep doing what you're doing. It might be the green was kind of maybe find a friend to just have a chat to. And then if you're right over on the other side, it was, hey, it might be a good opportunity to have a chat to a professional person. We've also done a lot of work around Are You OK Day? So this year, Council worked with one of our local chambers to support Are You OK Day. So we actually went around to businesses that were doing takeaway at that time, hospitality businesses, and provided them all with cups to use, takeaway cups for coffee cups for the day, so that the Are You OK messaging came through to our wider community through us supporting our businesses, and then did a bit of a Zoom catch up. We've called them impromptu catch up. So we get people to just jump online, literally, and I will apologise. I think I stole it from the Macleay Valley. But it's a good idea they did, so I stole it. That's what we do. And we were able to do that on a couple of occasions during the lockdown period. And it was really good. Just let people know in the morning, hey, jump online, and there's going to be other people. From that, we've had really good connections between to allow that networking. So, a small business operator who might be in a small part of our community and be the only type of operator there. So she's not a young mum, but a single lady on her own. And she's then been able to connect with another similar type of business operator in a different part of the LGA. And they've just been able to talk and go, hey, I was thinking of this, how does that work? And that kind of one-on-one networking, we've facilitated it. We're not involved in it at all, but it's just been something that our community has gone, that's really good. I wouldn't have known to reach out to that person. So just knowing who's who has been enabled that to work really well. So they're kind of the things that we've done. We do our 6 Degrees program. We have a lot of stuff for at-home businesses, not necessarily just young mums, but we do a lot of work with people who work from home. So I have a couple of co-working spaces that they can go to, and a couple of different events, both online and face-to-face, that business owners who are generally isolated in home can get to, and again, that networking opportunity that exists.
Thanks, Fiona. And Lisa, you did mention before the collaborative stakeholder groups that your council brought together during the bushfires and then the flood recovery periods. Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about there's been a lot of talk about collaboration, not only in Ignite, but there always is in the marketplace, but it's not always the easiest thing to achieve, particularly when programs are imposed upon us and then we're expected to deliver things that may not be relevant to the region. So how do you bring about those collaborative partnerships?
Great question, Kerry. Look, I think, the part of the success of the collaboration and the initiatives that we've done have been developing those relationships over a long period of time. We had and continue to have in place, economic development steering groups and our cultural steering groups and what have you as a council. So between that and, probably as a local government area, we have a pretty high proportion of business networks and community representative groups. And we also have been working through a process prior to bushfires and what have you, where we were developing community plans. So, a lot of people know our region for Port Macquarie, Wauchope and Laurieton, but, we've got some 30 odd towns and villages as well that see themselves as communities and work very well as communities and are passionate about their future. So, we had an incredible, I guess, network of community champions. And as we all know, through these other tough times and disasters, there are other people that step forward. So it's really been how do we as, staff in council identify those opportunities and the people to bring to the table. And, it is about, often it's fortuitous. Sometimes it's, trying to be innovative about what approach we can take. And I guess that's where we've had some success in working with funding bodies to say, we know that you've said this, but, here's an alternate proposal. And, to their credit, they've generally been very amenable to that. But it's, it is still a work in progress. And there's certainly a lot of challenges on all of us with the amount of money that is coming to local government and councils at the moment. How do we leverage some of those partnerships? We can't do it all. We're all feeling the pressure of trying to have projects that are shovel ready and deliver them within the timeframes that are being requested. And often it is one of those community groups or a business chamber who have a great idea that is going to work for their community or could be trialled in a particular township with the funding that's available and then potentially applied elsewhere. So, there's a lot going on in that space. And also, there are times when we know that we're the one with the money and we need to take the lead, but how can we make that initiative more effective by leveraging others? And, probably the most recent one, and it's linked actually to the topic you've just discussed around, the stress on business owners. In addition to all of the things that, have been discussed, one of the things that we've tried to do is look at what are the stresses and how do we actually address that as an issue for the business or anticipate what's coming. So, we looked at experiences overseas when countries have reopened and tourists have flocked in and saw, the amount of angst that occurred with the businesses who were short-staffed and struggling to ramp up again and, had difficult customers who were frustrated. And we're just in the process of rolling out we're calling it's a humankind campaign. So anyone who comes to the Port Macquarie Hastings region over the next couple of months, you'll see banners and posters and stickers and various other things that have this humankind on them. And what we're asking is that people be both. Be human and be kind. We've all come through these challenges. We're all doing our best. So how do we actually, address some of those things and try and alleviate the stress that is going to be placed on our local businesses as well?
That's great, Lisa. I'd love to see that certainly in some fast food places where my children work and have experienced the worst of customers as opposed to the worst of customer service. Being human and being kind is probably one of the most important things we can do right now as consumers as well. And on that note, Dennis, one more question for you. Working for council and being in community most of the time, I would imagine you can at times feel like you're the meat in the sandwich. How do you balance that? And another question is, what advice would you give to business owners to get an effective message through to council?
How I balance it. I listen a lot, and I believe that if someone's got a problem, that's their biggest problem. So it might not be everybody else's biggest problem. So first and foremost is to try and find a solution for them for that. It might not always be what they're looking for, but try and find a solution, have a reason behind that solution. That's probably the biggest point, to get balance. And as far as within their own business, do what they feel right. If they feel secure and safe, I mean, the rules and the guidelines have been changing at a rapid rate for almost 2 years now, and different things. So do as to yourself as you would do to others, and you can be successful in your business that way, and work a lot more comfortable.
That's a really good closing comment, Dennis. Thank you very much. And I know how hard all of you work, and that every time you leave your front door, there's probably somebody at you needing something in your community, whether in the shopping aisle or in your social media or in the local pub or wherever it is that you are. So I would like to thank you all for the work that you do for our region. I really appreciate it. And when I first moved home as a relocator, Wayne was the first person that connected me with a job here, which has then led to today. So very excellent, and never praised enough resource in our community, our people working in the economic development departments of our council. So thank you all, and thank you for joining the panel today. I really appreciate it. We're going to close up this panel now, and if you go on to the next link, we'll be into the final panel of the day before we go to the fan side chat. So the panel that we're heading to now is called Innovate or Die, hosted by Courtney Toon. So we'll see you in that one. And again, thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, Dennis, and Fiona.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you later.